How happy has our next guest made you, Chris Brockman?
I don't think you could put a number on it. 2004 was one of the greatest years in the run in October that I've ever had.
I mean, he's a new skipper of the Boston Red Sox, right?
Yeah.
And
that team, I think, brought me more joy than
the 2004 Red Sox,
than any team that I've ever rooted for.
All right,
we've had a lot of parades.
Let's bring on the manager of the Cincinnati Reds that we're referring to right now. 2.5 games back in the wild card. Right now in the National League, getting set to take on the Padres tonight in Cincinnati. Terry Francona. How you doing, Terry? Good to see you.
Rich, great to see you. Thanks for having me.
I'm sure you've heard that from people from the greater New England area your entire existence, right, Terry? Pretty much?
Yeah, you know what? It was a pretty cool thing. There's no getting around it. I'm pretty good about moving on and staying in the moment.
Right.
But I'd be lying. Those 4 days when we came back against the Yankees, they're probably my 4 funnest baseball days of my life.
And do you when you see Dave Roberts, do you ever talk about it? Those moments when you see Dave?
Are you kidding me? Every time I see him, I hug him. Because truth be told,
Yes.
I probably would have got fired. And I know ownership had kind of drafted a letter of apology to all the fans for our showing, and it wasn't a very good mood around the ballpark. And then a week later, we all could have run for mayor. So it's I think you got to keep things in perspective. But every time I see Davey, we laugh about it.
Now, when did you come up with the idea of letting him take a base, Terry? Or did he do it on his own, or what happened there?
We talked about it. We actually had talked about it in Anaheim in the first round of the playoffs, and he couldn't get a good jump. He was fighting to do it, and he couldn't do it. So we kind of met down in the runway before the inning, and we had Millar and Billy Miller there and Dave, and I said, Millar's going to get on, and then this is what we're going to do. And we were possibly going to bunt if Dave couldn't get a jump, but Millar had swung the bat so well against Mariano. He's one of the few guys that did. And I know as I was talking to Dave, Billy Miller's eyes are like, hey, man, give me one thing. Like, you got 9 things going. And then when Millar walked and Davey left the dugout, I just winked at him. And that was in my way of telling him, go get it, big boy.
And I love that you bring it up when maybe you're handing out lineup cards against the Dodgers or anytime you see him. That's pretty cool, man. Look at that moment right there. Dave Roberts. That's Jeter, by the way, who turned 51 the other day. You want to feel old? Derek Jeter's 51 years old, man.
Yeah. I already felt old, but
Right.
I still wouldn't feel good if he was playing shortstop for a team, because he's kind of the ultimate guy that, one of the greatest kids in the world. And then when you play him, he wants to, rip your heart out, which is what you're supposed to do.
Right. Well, you got a pretty damn good shortstop of your own right now, Terry Francona. I'll be honest with you. Obviously Elly's arrival predates yours there in Cincinnati. I'm wondering, when you're getting offered the job and you're thinking about coming back and being a manager, is he a reason why you're like, I will manage the Cincinnati Reds, Terry?
Not exclusively. I'd be kind of fibbing if I said I wasn't excited.
Right.
Because of, the youth and what he can do, and I think what he's going to do. It was actually a couple things. One, it was the youth of our whole team.
Yes.
Which I really like, especially our pitching staff. And then, truth be told, when Nick and Brad came out to my house, we kind of talked about this job. I was sitting in my rocking chair, and it just felt right. About a half hour into it, I caught myself saying, well, we could do this, we could do that. And I was like, whoa, slow down. And it felt good. I like going through things with people that I respect and care about and know they're going to kind of have my back. I felt that way in Cleveland, and I felt that way here. And I think I made a really good choice.
Yeah, I guess that's my fault for bringing up a specific player like Elly Cruz to a manager to say, you know what, there's one guy. Obviously, it's a team effort. I totally understand that. But this kid had me and everyone here at hello. He just has such a freakish abilities in obviously the most positive way to use that word. Is there a comparison, if you don't mind me just focusing on him for a second, because I am such a fan of Elly Cruz, of anybody that you've seen before, Terry?
Rich, I get it. I'm new here, or fairly new here, And even like, we're going to Boston Monday, and my grandkids want to talk to him. He has that allure. I had heard about it before I got here, but I don't know if I've ever seen, MJ's the one, but when this kid walks out into the field or into the dugout or somewhere, everybody goes crazy for him. And I think it's a combination of his talents, the way he plays the game, and then his personality. Like, you just look at him, the way he carries himself, you can tell he's a good kid. And it comes shining through. And to me, that, when you couple that with the talent he has, that makes him pretty special.
Yeah, and just again, his speed and everything that he can do to help change the game. How has your team improved between game one to game tonight against San Diego that you've seen, Terry?
Well, I think we're getting better defensively. That's one of our biggest and again, some of it's just by the good fortune of having like McLean back and Friedel back healthy. But we're trying to not everybody chases offense. We try not to chase it so much where we put ourselves in a bind because we think we have good young starting pitching. And if you put them in a, behind the 8-ball, you end up chasing your tail a little bit. So we're trying to make things reach offensively while not hurting ourselves defensively.
Then I guess how has the game changed since game one you managed with the Phillies to game tonight against the against the you're laughing, but obviously things have changed, including my own hairline, because I was doing Sports Center highlights for your Phillies back in the day, and now here I am all these years later. But how have things changed between that day and tonight's game, Terry?
When I got hired in the winter of '96,
right,
there was a general manager and an assistant general manager. Now there are baseball ops people. And it's a good thing. The game is evolving. There's more information. I think as a manager, you need to know like what to sift through, what to take, what not to take. Because if you take 50 different ideas that are coming at you and you try to use them all, it's going to be chaos. And again, I do enjoy when somebody has the ability to make me kind of maybe second guess the way I was thinking or try something. I actually enjoy that, but it has to make sense to me. I'm not just going to do it because it's on a piece of paper.
But how does that manifest itself during a game, right? You've got information in front of you, or it's downloaded. Like, are you going to have a meeting after this interview, or you already have about tonight's Padres lineup, second time through the order, third time through the order? It just seems to me like righty versus lefty is so damn quaint. You know what I mean? Like, there's got to be a million different nuanced stats that are placed in front of you prior to one single game, Terry, right?
And again, if it's not applicable during a game, it's not really going to help. So
right.
The guys here are great. They give me the information. I have this lineup card here.
Yep.
And I have it filled out on the front and back. Once I have this card filled out, I'm ready to go. I can relax. I can enjoy the day because I feel like I'm prepared and I know what I want to do. Doesn't mean it's going to happen. But like I said, once I feel prepared, I can relax and start to enjoy the game.
Terry Francona, Cincinnati Reds manager here on the Rich Eisen Show. You mentioned MJ before, sir. For the kids in the back, that's Michael Jordan you're referring to in terms of superstar status, right? That's how you're referring to Elly De La Cruz in terms of level of interest, but Jordan's different. What was Michael like when he first walked into the clubhouse, when you were the skipper for him in the minor leagues, Terry?
I would have a hard time ever finding something negative to say about him. I remember it was kind of fashionable at the time to get on him about playing baseball. And, the first thing I mentioned to him when we got to Birmingham was, hey, these guys have worked really hard just to get to the AA level. This is the amount of money they're making or not making. And, what we're doing, you got to respect the game of baseball. And my goodness, I don't know if I've ever been around somebody that respected the game more. It made it easy to be patient with him baseball-wise because you had to, because he hadn't played. But he worked hard. He was knowledgeable. He was coachable. And you know what? It shouldn't be surprising because I don't think you can be that good in another sport without having those traits and characteristics.
Is there anything off-field that he did that you can share where you were beyond impressed? You're like, wow, that is something I didn't expect from Michael Jordan. I didn't see that one coming. Anything like that, Terry?
I think once I got to know him, I saw everything coming. Like, it's hard to do anything with him or, against him where you're not competing. I mean, whether it's ping pong, tennis, golf, certainly, Yahtzee, it didn't matter. And he didn't like to lose. And that's like all the stories you've heard, they're true.
Yeah, all of those stories, like on the bus and stuff like that. That's what you're saying, pretty much.
Yeah, I found out. It took me a while because the Southern League back in the day, there were some long bus rides,
right?
And they weren't sleeper buses. It was sometimes 2 to a seat, and they were long. And I'd look at him, and he seemed so content. And it took me a while to figure out that was probably the first time in years where nobody could get at him, and he could actually relax and either listen to music or read a book or play cards, and nobody could get at him. And he really enjoyed it.
I love that, man. And last one for you on this one. What was he naturally great at, and what was he working on that if he somehow, some way, by the grace of the sports gods, decided to just stick with baseball, do you think he would have been great at, Terry?
Well, even early on, before he played a lot, I mean, he stole 30 bases, in the Southern League. He drove in 50. He was so long levered that he was always working on trying to keep his swing short. And he, when he went to the Fall League, he was drastically improved. I don't think it's fair to talk about any prospect till they get about 1,000 at bats. But I'll tell you what, Rich, and I found out sometimes the hard way. You tell him no, and he's going to find a way to make the answer be yes. And I believe that in baseball, too.
Terry Francona, a few minutes left with the Cincinnati Reds skipper here. And then while we're in the Wayback Machine, let's go back to Boston. So when you arrived there, it was Big Papi's second year there. What was your first interactions with David Ortiz like? And did you know that he was beginning to just break out? He kind of did break out in the year before your arrival. When you arrived, it started a run for Big Papi that will end in Cooperstown, as we all know. Your first interactions with him and what you saw when you got there, Terry.
Couldn't have been better. I mean, this guy was off the charts. And to me, before he was probably David, before he was becoming Big Papi.
Right.
And I enjoyed that actually probably more. He was kind of a go-to guy. There were several guys like, Veritek. I mean, there's a lot of guys on that team that I don't know if people realized how solid of baseball players they are. Like Johnny Damon would run into the wall, hair flying, and he'd text me in the morning, I think I can play. You know what? And then he did play more often than not. I mean, those guys, Millar, the stuff you saw with Millar, it was real. It was meaningful. We had guys that just really liked to play baseball. And when the game was over, if we lost and they're trudging up to the clubhouse, it wasn't because they didn't get hits. It's because we lost. So, again, there were some characters, but boy, they had some character.
All right. And then, again, hitting the Wayback Machine considerably. I've got a photograph of a Cincinnati Red. I'd like you to help me identify who this person is. Can we pop it up on the screen, guys, if you don't mind, for Terry? Who is this Cincinnati Red we have see on the screen here? Who is that? Who's that?
That looks like my little brother. That's like half of me. Obviously, I didn't spend enough time in the weight room. God, that is unbelievable.
Yeah, it's
like half of me. No wonder I couldn't hit the ball very far.
No, you were staring down the pitcher, whoever that was. Looks like you were staring.
No, I was staring down the cameraman,
right.
And it was in foul territory because I wasn't playing very much.
Yeah, you would have been great with the pitch clock. You were making eyes. You know what I mean? Like you wouldn't have got one of these back in the day. Who was on the Reds when you were there, Terry? Who was on that team when you were on the Reds?
Let's see. Barry Larkin, Kurt Stillwell. It was a young, good team. Eric Davis, Tracy Jones, Bo Diaz was a catcher, Ronnie Oster, Buddy Bell. It was a mix of veteran and young guys. And truth be told, I was the weak link. Nick Asaski gotten hurt early in spring training. I started playing. I think I got like amnesia, like I forgot how to hit. And it bothered me because I think Pete really looked out for me and wanted me to make the club, and I felt like I let him down, and it bothered me for a long time.
And for the kids in the back, the Pete is Pete Rose. What in the world was he like as a manager, Terry?
Well, you got to remember, I played with Pete in Montreal,
Right.
so I don't know how many people can say they played with him and for him.
Wow.
So he was my teammate 3 years earlier, and you can't find a better teammate. I don't care where you look, and I know that's documented. This guy is the ultimate teammate. So playing for him, I wanted to do okay because I loved him. I revered him. And like I said, I didn't do very well, but he never gave up on me. Probably could have released me a few times, never did. I would have tried to run through a wall for him.
Yeah. I mean, and now, I mean, what is it like for you to, again, you played with him, for him, and now you've succeeded him in the position, in a way, for the Cincinnati Reds. And I don't know if you walk past the statue of him diving for, home plate with the Pete Rose hair. I mean, what goes through your head? Do you ever stop and think about this stuff? I know you like living in the moment, as you say.
But I got actually in my office, you can't see it.
Yeah.
I got a picture of Pete hidden. I got a jersey. I got a ball. I got a bat.
Love it.
I know there's some miscues along the way. I'm aware of that.
Right.
And I'm glad I never had to be part of the process, because I would have never been able to not be biased when it comes to him.
Right.
Because I revered him, and I still do. And when they had the Pete Rose night and his family and his kids and grandkids were here, I was front and center, just watching and listening and smiling. It was great.
Yeah, it's really amazing. And obviously the history and the pageantry of the Cincinnati Reds that you're trying to bring back and bring a title there to Cincinnati, like you did to Boston, obviously, twice over. And I also can't help but notice you're already at home. I saw this online the other day. I want to ask you about this chair. Is that from your boat, Terry? Is this what you're sitting on during the games right now? Is this what's going down for you?
Brad, Nick, the guys, my bosses here, they asked me how my legs were doing, because I was standing, because I can't see. If I look through that screen,
yes,
I feel like I can't see the game, so I got to stand over it.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, my legs get a little tired. And they were like, well, get a chair. Well, I need to get a chair. I'm not gonna kill myself. Or, I had one of those, a little smaller version in Cleveland, and it actually broke a couple times, and nobody ever laughed at that as I fell backwards, during the game. But this one's kind of the Cadillac version, and I've only had it for 2 nights, but I love it, man. And trying to see if they'll let me, instead of walking to the mound, just cast out and get a picture.
Like, instead of a hook, you actually have an actual hook. Like, when you hook a player, you just cast it out and hook the player. That's interesting.
I don't know who did it, but the other day when I went out there was one of those captain's hats sitting on the chair. So, I tried it on, and I think everybody thought it'd be funny. The bad part was, I think I ended up looking more like Max Patkin than probably a boat captain.
The clown prince of baseball, with a reference right here. I love it, Terry. What a blast, man. I'm so happy that you took the time, obviously, on a game day. Best of luck tonight and down the road, and look for more of my calls to have you on. It's just a pleasure. Everyone at ESPN still talks glowingly of your time when you were there, and I've obviously been covering you for forever and a day. What a pleasure chatting with you. Thanks again, Terry.
It's thanks. Everybody there was so kind to me, and everybody helped me, because I got lost every day there. So everybody helped me get to my car. It was actually a fabulous experience. Thanks for having me. I enjoy watching you on the NFL, man.
Thanks, bud. I really appreciate it. It's Terry Francona taking on the San Diego Padres tonight in Cincinnati, the great American ballpark. Cincinnati Reds in the mix in the National League and the National League Central right here on the Rich Eisen Show. That was a delight. Catch the Rich Eisen Show live weekdays from 12 to 3 p.m. Eastern on Roku Sports Channel in the U.S.